I've given this a lot of thought on an up-leveling solution because a lot of our clients will talk about, what is my maturity journey? Well, the ones that actually care, the ones that don't care, unfortunately, they don't go very far. But the ones that are really in tune, and I'm going to say it's a majority, they say, well, what are we going to do first and what are we going to do next? And if we design what that maturity level is, there are components that will talk about, getting to a more mature state. Obviously, those ones at the lower end of the scale are going to be ones who are doing more manual activities, who are doing a lot more of sending around of attachments, and really have to redo a lot of work because a lot of information coming off of scanners, et cetera, is a point in time. And unless you have some way to annotate that with record of decision or awareness or acknowledgement, it becomes very difficult. So let's assume that's been done. Considering moving, say, from a level 2 to level 3, we're introducing some intelligence and automation. This is where also we need to consider about maybe creating a closed loop lifecycle. And what I mean that is if we find it and we fix it and we confirm it, I consider that a closed loop. And that's a simplified structure, but it's amazing how many people don't do that last step to confirm it. So, and it's much like a disaster recovery plan. You build a plan, you don't test it. So it's really important we close that loop. If we start to do that, the maturity can't help but up level because now we have accountability driven into different areas of the business. Those that find it are experts in finding things. Those that fix it are experts in fixing or applying patches or reconfiguring. So we need to make sure that all of those people have ready access to as real-time information as possible. So those are design considerations when we talk about up-leveling a program.
I agree completely. And I think to your point about the vulnerability scanning needs to be dynamic and continuous. And I think it takes some organizations a while to figure that out because even medium and small networks are constantly changing, not just with whatever is being done internally, but you also have shadow IT that unfortunately you have to worry about and all of these other problems. So that internal scanning and asset management and that is continuous is really, really important to make sure you're catching new things and being able to account for that. Because even if you didn't authorize it, you're still going to get blamed if if a vulnerability in that system results in an attack on your organization or data loss or other problems. First of all, maybe understanding vulnerabilities that haven't been published yet. Often vulnerabilities come out before there's a CVE for them, whether it's a 0-day vulnerability or whether it's a researcher discovers it, decides not to go through the normal process and just post it on Twitter. So understanding what those vulnerabilities are and how to adapt to those, which is a challenge for any organization. If there is no patch, what are your compensating controls? How can you protect your organization from that? I think in 2020, there were something like 12,000 vulnerabilities that were released over the course of the year. But only 1 or 2% of those were active exploits developed for. So really finding that information and getting to the point of what is being actively exploited, what is being widely exploited is really important because it helps improve your organizational workflow and allows you to be more efficient in choosing what to patch.
Then there is, I'm going to say, a higher than should be dependency on the vulnerability scanner being your other source of information. And the vulnerability scanner is a great source of information because they consider other aspects of information, but not all of them. But once you get down into the nuts and the bolts of it, and we can match up with what you actually have or do, then where do we get that information? Where do we get that intelligence to inject into the formula to reprioritize or change the risk score?
I think a lot of companies, especially as they get bigger, they operate like a small town in New Jersey where everything works by, I know a guy. And that is unfortunately the way a lot of vulnerability management works is, okay, we found a vulnerability in this system. Well, who's responsible for that? Well, I know Bob over in business operations, and this seems like a business operations thing. So you reach out to Bob, and Bob says, "Oh no, that's not me. I think that's over here." And then you reach out to the other department, and like, no, that's not us. And finally, you find somebody somewhere who's responsible for it, but they don't necessarily know how to do patching or upgrades or put in compensating controls. And so you have to start the process all over again. And I love your concept of tabletop exercises for vulnerability management, something that I don't think most organizations do, because until there is something that needs to be patched, you don't know, you don't know that you don't know who's in charge of that. Because while it may seem obvious, well, this is obviously a server, this should go to the server people, or this should go to the endpoint people. It's surprising when you find out, oh no, there's a whole other organization I wasn't aware of there that may be responsible for this.